Hi, I'm Grace,
And I'm Prisca.
and this is the Fighting Club, a space where being together makes us stronger.
Take a break and hang out with us. All right, time for our bestie check-in. Grace, how are you doing?
I'm okay. I kind of have a sore throat, and so I've been trying to rest the last couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
I am a little like mentally, I'm really exhausted. Um, I'm flying out to Atlanta in a few days for a big event and the Stand Together API event we've been working on. Um, and it's like 36 days before election day, and my mind is racing, and I have so many things going on. I'm stressed and tired, and I need to rest. How
It's
are
a
you?
it's
Huh?
a really busy season for you right now.
It is. It
Yeah.
is, but it will be over soon. So, yeah. I just gotta pace myself and everyone who's in the political space, we just gotta pace herself. But yeah, how are you doing? I know you have a lot going on as well.
I'm doing good. I'm preparing to go to Korea soon.
Ah, right.
I'm both excited and also very anxious.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know, I get a lot of anxiety just in terms of traveling
Hmm.
and the logistics of all of that. But once I land there and
Hmm.
really get to soak in everything, it'll be really fun. So I'm looking forward to that.
Wait, so are you anxious generally when you travel, or is it because it's going to Korea?
Well, I'm traveling alone with my daughter,
Hmm.
and so I don't know, just
Hmm.
the unpredictability of travel sometimes,
Yeah.
maybe delays or
Yeah, totally.
I don't know, landing in the airport and trying to figure out where to go.
Oh, okay.
Uh, yeah. Because usually I can just sort of rely on
Your
Jeff
husband? Poor Jeff.
lead me
He just
out.
takes care of
I have
everything.
a terrible sense of direction,
Hmm.
disoriented very easily, so I have to be like really on.
Got it.
So today we're going to talk about our experience as PKs in the Korean immigrant church. So I don't know if everybody in our circle knows this, but we are both PKs. We
What's
both
a
go to
PK?
a PK is a pastor's kid.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, so we have definitely have a very specific shared experience.
Yeah,
So,
especially in Georgia, growing up as pastors' kids in Korean churches in the South. But
mhm.
what kind of church background do you come from again? Your denomination?
My family was Southern Baptist,
Hmm.
and it wasn't like a mega church or anything. It was like small size churches.
What's small
Like,
size in Georgia?
uh,
Like 200?
I'm not good with numbers.
Oh. Well, I was just
But it
asking.
wasn't
Uh-huh.
it maybe like 100. I don't know. But my
Hmm.
dad he was I think like a church planter.
Hmm.
So we moved around a lot
Hmm.
after he would like establish a church.
Uh-huh.
By the time that we met,
Hmm.
he wasn't pastoring a church anymore because
Oh, where else did he plant churches?
he got a role. He got a role at a major, like a mission organization in
Oh.
Atlanta. So that's
Uh-huh.
why we moved to Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
But he was still, considered
A
full time.
pastor.
Yeah, and he would still be in certain like preaching cycles and giving messages.
I grew up Assemblies of God, which is Pentecostal, very more charismatic. And so like characteristics would include like our services were very loud.
Mm.
People would clap along, stand up, dance, they would speak in tongues. We would have early morning prayer every single day when at sunrise or before sunrise at like 4:30 or 5 a.m. And then on Friday nights, I would see exorcisms. So I saw like demons being casted out of
Oh,
people. And those are characteristics of like an Assemblies of God, a more Pentecostal church. That's why I was asking, what does a Southern Baptist church look like? Because our
it's
church was like, huh?
it's not like that at all. It wasn't doesn't have any of those, I guess, charismatic elements.
Uh-huh.
Maybe the most is just like clapping during
Uh-huh.
the praise songs.
Uh-huh. Are they
But
hymns or are they like contemporary Christian music?
I honestly I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
But it was not like that, what you're describing as your experience. I
Uh-huh.
think the first time that because we didn't experience that at the church we went to together.
No, we didn't. But I grew up in a very different type of
And that was a
church experience.
Baptist church. We went to a Baptist church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty much like that. And
Mm.
the first time I experienced anything like more than that was
Yeah.
when um our friend invited me to some like retreat.
Yeah.
And then they were talking about speaking in tongues. I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And uh, calling people up, and then,
Mm.
people would fall. And I wanted to fall, but I didn't want it to be like fake. But I just didn't feel like I was gonna
Mhm.
fall.
Uh-huh.
And the pastor came into my face and he was like, feel the breath of the Holy Spirit. I'm like, that's your breath. I don't know. I didn't feel like
You're falling because the breath smells so bad. You're like, oh, I need
I'm
to fall.
fainting. But yeah, it was a little strange for me. Um,
Yeah.
but that was sort of my first experience with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for most of my life, it was like what we had at our church.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What we had at our church at Atlanta Korean Baptist Church was just like totally opposite of how I grew up. So,
Mm. Do you have a
yeah.
preference?
Huh?
Do you have a preference?
I used to like really get scared of exorcisms and honestly as a kid it's scary to see like demons come out of people, right? It was just like scary. But as I've grown older, especially in my late 20s and through my 30s, I've gone back to my charismatic roots, but I think what I was lacking growing up was like a strong theological foundation where I felt like what I was learning in church and from pastors and leaders in the church was strong biblical foundation where it was like teachings from the Bible versus people just like being led only by the spirit and not by the word as well, if that makes sense. And so I grew up in like my dad was so intense. He had a prayer room in that house where he would like pray for many hours every single day in his prayer room. And then
Mhm.
he would make us like he would watch TV and it would only be like the televangelists. So like Benny Hinn and Rod Parsley and then TD Jakes. And so those people who are like mega church pastors who are televangelists and
Yeah.
super charismatic, they would be in our living rooms like every week. And um, I just remember thinking like, "Oh, that's just what it is." And I think that affected like our household too, like just transitioning to how what our homes were like too, growing up as a pastor's kid. Um, Especially for me in a charismatic Korean church, we didn't have, do you remember Blockbuster, like membership to watch
Yeah.
videos? My dad said we couldn't get Blockbuster memberships because it's like not of God, it's secular of the world. And he's like, you can't be tainted. So we're not getting cable. We only watch public uh television broadcasting like PBS and then televangelists. That's all we watch at home.
Yeah, wow.
It was so intense. What
I
about you?
I thought I was sheltered, and well, I wasn't to that extent. I don't know if they explicitly said you cannot listen to this
Mm,
kind of music,
uh-huh.
but it was just like frowned upon.
Right.
Um, but I
What
just
kind of
event
music?
it's like pop music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I just started listening on my own and you listen to the radio.
Yeah, radio.
But I guess they didn't provide real like access to it.
Yeah,
So in that way it was just like, oh, I guess they don't really
got it.
love it.
Yeah.
Um,
You weren't exposed to it proactively from your parents.
yeah,
Yeah.
not a lot of exposure to the world.
Do you remember in middle school when K-pop became really big and HOT and
Mhm.
Checky and SES and Binko, like all the Korean American kids in Georgia started like listening to their CDs and
Yeah.
tape cassettes, was it?
Hmm.
Um, I know it sounds like we're so old. But I remember my dad would not be okay with the secular music, so I would listen secretly on my Walkman to like HOT music and Turbo,
Mm.
and SES in my room underneath my blankets, and then I would get these chapchi checks, which is like the Korean magazines for like that has all the K-pop stars on it, especially HOT. Like I love Tony On. I was like, I'm Tony On's wife. So I would write notes to my friend on like Sanrio and Morning Glory paper and say Mrs. On from Mrs. On. And then I would send it to my friend Connie, who was Kangta's wife. And I can't remember well, Kangta's, which one was his last name, but it's like Kangta's wife, to Kangta's wife from Tony's wife. But I
Yeah.
had to hide it because
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to like do that.
I relate to that. There was
Mm,
like, a little bit of a secretive
mm,
thing to it.
mm, hmm.
Yeah, it didn't feel like free. Like I
Yeah,
could openly listen to it and,
do
you know,
it.
dance to it or talk about it.
Yeah.
But do you think that your parents knew?
I think my mom knew because I think she went through all of our stuff.
Yeah.
I think my mom didn't care as much as my dad did. My dad was the one who was a lot more like strict about these types of things. And
Hmm.
since he was like the head of the household as like a Korean man, especially Korean male pastor, like I remember we would have these like forced Bible studies that he led. And I was just like,
Hmm.
I'm so bored.
Or like with the family.
Yeah, family Bible study at home. Like we already go to church 4 times a week. Do we need
Yes, we
another
never
Bible
did
study?
that. We never did that. Wow.
It was so
Every
intense.
week or every day?
Every week. Not every, oh, every day would be crazy, but yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
didn't you go to church often too as a PK? Like we were there at
Yeah,
church
I
more
was
than we
there
were home.
all the time.
Yeah.
And I would go early with my dad.
Hmm.
And so be there before people came and hang
Yep.
out in his office.
Yeah.
And then we'd always be like the last to leave. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, let's just please, like you see your parents talking, they finish a interaction, and then another person approaches, and you're just like,
Let's
no,
just
because now
go home.
because now it's like another 20-minute conversation. Um, so yeah, a lot of time spent at the church, and also a lot of people at our home all the time. That
Yeah.
it actually felt strange when there were nights when no one was there. That
Yeah.
was not the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's real. I felt that same way. Like our home was a community center, an unofficial community center
Mhm.
where our door, I think I mentioned it before, that it was like an open door policy. So our house was never locked and random people would just always come in. Like, I mean, mostly Koreans, right? From our church or our parents' friends or an auntie or an uncle who's visiting that weren't actually blood related, but they're like part of our extended family now. And I just I just remember thinking like really kind of resenting not having any sense of privacy as a kid,
Mm.
especially in my teenage years. Like I wanted my own room, my own space, and not random people coming in and out all the time, especially if they were not my friends.
Mm.
Um, but I think it made me, as much as it was tough, I think it made me more um like appreciate hospitality and be more hospitable to people.
Mm.
And I think it opened my mind up to like really serving other people, even though I think it was a little overkill with our parents because I felt like both my mom and dad would be serving the church more than they were serving the home in many ways. And I think
Yeah,
that was hard, but isn't that the case for a lot of PKs?
I feel that. Yeah, you feel a little bit neglected because you
Yeah.
see their capacity for care,
Yeah.
but it's really being poured out to the church,
Yeah.
and then you're expected to
Be
be,
flexible.
yeah. I mean,
But
I
yeah.
have a lot of like positive memories in terms of, you know, being around people all the time.
Yeah.
Like it was like very community centered
Yes.
and a lot of eating together,
Oh yeah, good Korean food.
playing games,
Yeah.
a lot of like events at parks.
Mm.
We play games and stuff and
Mhm.
um, prizes that was like, you know, a big pack of toilet paper or, super practical prizes.
Yeah.
And like a lot of college aunties took care of me.
Oh.
Um, but then also on the other hand, everyone is speaking Korean. And I think
Mm.
that always made me feel uncomfortable
Mm.
actually because I'm not fluent
Mhm.
and I didn't have any peers either
Mm.
during these times that my dad pastored a church. So I was always the
Um,
oldest out of all the kids at
I
church.
see. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's tough.
so there's some good memories, but I think I always felt like, oh, I'm just here, because of my parents and
Mm.
not fully feeling that sense of belonging,
Mm.
and then kind of experiencing that at school too. I mean, I have
Mm.
friends, but
Mhm.
in the previous episode, I think I mentioned I always sort of, felt
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think I retreated a lot into myself, into
Mm.
my like imagination. So I remember
Mm.
in my childhood, I just created all these like fantasy worlds in my mind.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
yeah, actually, what was fun about church was that since I was the oldest, I
Mhm.
could, invite all these kids would be at our house, where I'd be with all these little kids all the time, and I could invite them into my world.
Mm.
And just they'd be like my minions, and I'd assign them roles and characters, almost like a play. And
Oh,
of course, like I was always the main character. It's like the director, the main
that's
character.
like eldest daughter energy. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I mean that was fun.
I think that's yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And actually I wanted to learn more about kind of, growing up in the church, um, like kind of being the oldest kid as well, and being the oldest daughter of like three kids of a pastor, and pastor's wife. Like, what did you feel like were unspoken expectations or maybe also explicitly spoken expectations of you as the oldest pastor's kid? And how did you react to that?
Um, yeah, I don't think anybody explicitly told me like you have to be this certain way because you are the pastor's kid. And but there were definitely expectations that I felt
Yeah.
because it was unspoken.
Yeah.
It just felt like so uncomfortable and like a burden.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why now I
Yeah.
need everything to be explicit. Like I hate
Oh.
seeing like what people expect from me because I just grew up having a sense that people needed or expected me to be a certain way. So basically I thought like, oh, I have to be perfect.
Yeah.
I have to succeed
Yeah.
in all areas of my life,
Yeah.
like academically.
Yeah.
uh, be proper and respectful and spiritual, all those things.
Mm.
Yeah, what about you?
Um, yeah, I think there was a lot of unspoken expectations. You know, we had to wear these like really uncomfortable frilly outfits, especially when we were in elementary school. Frilly dresses with white socks and black plastic shoes. And I think that made me very uptight. Also, knowing like I was such a rule follower. I knew like I can't listen to secular music, even though I did. Um, and I can't do this and that. I had to be a good kid. And could feel the Korean elders' eyes on me all the time. Like we were never just like, again, whether we were at home or in the church, there's just eyes on us all the time. I could feel it. So I knew like I had to behave. And,
Mm.
my mom was a disciplinarian, so she would like discipline us at church in front of people if she needed to, or take us into the bathroom and spank us. But I think that made me become like a difficult kid to be friends with at church because I would just like tattletale when people would want to play with fire as kids in the backyard or of the church, or when they want to play spin the bottle, I'll be like, well, how come you guys don't invite me to play spin the bottle? I felt left out in middle school, and they're like, oh, clearly it's because I would tattle on them.
Like we
But
play into that expectation.
mm,
Like I just had this memory of me as a child. I was with my siblings and
mm,
I was just like having fun.
mm,
But my idea of fun
mm.
was like portraying what a perfect person is like. And I was like, this is how a perfect person drinks water. This is how a perfect person eats their soup. And
Wow.
why is it that that was my like idea of
Fun.
anything as a kid? Yeah,
Yeah.
that to be perfect, and that was something I wanted to achieve. But I think like
Interesting.
as a kid you can sense, especially in the Korean church,
Yes.
the sort of like reverence that is given to the pastor
Pastors.
and his family, especially the
Yes.
pastor. So
Yeah.
like you sense that,
Yes.
and you are a reflection of your
And
parents, and you hold
yes.
that responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, do you remember that episode in Kim's Convenience, that Korean Canadian show on Netflix? There's an episode where they go to a Korean Canadian church, and then all of the ajumas, the older ladies in the church, are trying to show off to the pastor how much they're serving the church and making all of this like food for the congregants. And they're like, Pastor, look at me and do this. I was like, oh my God, this feels like my Korean church experience. I
Mhm.
thought it was accurate, like how they were portraying this like kind of glorification of the pastor, and that would include the family too. And it's like we were just human beings, broken people making a lot of mistakes all the time. But I think because they were like a faith leader, a spiritual leader, there's this like extra expectations, but the kids just had to deal with it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, there's a there was a moment when my sister, she was climbing a tree at church.
Mm,
One of the church members told her, oh, you should come down, that's not safe. She
mm,
was young, like
mm, mm, mm,
maybe 5 or 4.
mm.
And she was like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm the pastor's kid.
Oh,
And it wasn't like she was like being mean or aggressive. It was some kind of truth that it's
entitlement.
like because of how what she was observing herself in terms of the dynamic at church, and like even at that age she had a sense of how like she was positioned in the
Mm.
church because of the special treatment that
Wow.
the pastor got. So it's unspoken, but kids pick up on
Oh,
it,
they totally do. That's
and
interesting.
we're influenced by it. It
Uh-huh.
sounds like we both sort of like leaned into
Yeah.
it a little bit.
Oh, all the way. And then
All
I
the way, all the
I was
way.
like, "Yeah, let me be that model perfect child for you," and then
Do
until it
you feel
broke
you were
me.
still like that in high school?
I think high school, I won't go into it so much here, but that's when my parents got divorced and the church like was kind of splintering and a lot of things happened. And so I think as I saw the perfect image of what our family was and the church was crumble before my eyes, in
Mhm,
high school, I think that's when I also released some of that
mhm,
expectations for myself, but I don't think it was until I left Georgia and went to college in Boston that um yeah, I felt like I really tried to escape more of that perfect mold image that was really unrealistic, and then also had to figure out what my faith was for myself and Christian faith, so
mhm.
yeah, I mean, what do you think? In high school and through college, do you feel like the expectations of you as a pastor's kid carried you affected you? And
Yeah, I think I probably struggled the most in high school.
okay, yeah.
Because even though my dad wasn't pastoring a church, he was
Yeah.
still giving messages
Yeah.
periodically at our church.
Yeah.
And high school is a rough time,
It
going through
is.
puberty, and
Yeah.
I wasn't like the perfect kid. I wasn't like super rebellious, but
Right.
I guess rebelling in my own way. And
Mm.
there were a lot of like cultural clashes, like with my
Yeah.
own parents. We had experienced a lot of conflict in that time. And I think like when my dad would share those kinds of anecdotes um, in his messages about, the season that I was in or
Oh,
interactions that
yeah. How did that feel
I
as being preached
kind
about
of
from the
felt like
pulpit without consent?
I think I felt that the Korean adults were judging me.
Uh,
Um, and I can't really remember like specifically if anyone said anything explicit to me. But I just had this feeling, or
yeah.
at least an insecurity, because
Yeah.
something was shared and I didn't get to share my side.
Yeah.
It really portrayed me negatively. So I thought, oh, everybody must think I'm this like disrespectful or
Oh.
rebellious teenager. And I actually had the youth pastor of our church come to me, take me aside into the office. And he told me I need to treat my parents better. And I was so pissed. And like at that time, being with the Korean adults, like I had a good time with the youth group, but I think being in the Korean adult space represented like a place of like powerlessness and
Mm.
insecurity and having no voice
Yeah.
and shame. Like all of those sort of heavy feelings were attached to that space. And I really didn't enjoy it. I
Mm.
really dreaded interacting with the adults.
Yeah.
And
I
also, again, because of the language barrier, I couldn't speak Korean.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I don't think I ever at that age I wasn't like, oh, they think this of me, so let me try to counter their assumptions
Mm.
and try to be better. But I instead just pretended like I didn't care when actually I was
Really
developing
affected by it.
silent resentment.
Yeah.
Yeah, inside. Yeah,
Mm.
and it did affect me a lot, looking
Mm.
back.
Would you ever go back to attending a Korean church or a Korean American church, given your experience in it?
To be honest, in this moment,
Mhm.
my answer would be no.
Yeah.
No, and you mean like attending?
Yeah, like choosing to go to a Korean church as an adult with your family right now,
Yeah,
or a
I think
Korean American
it would be
church.
no. I mean, I don't. I think there are a lot of honestly amazing and wonderful things about the Korean church
Yeah, I agree.
and things that I miss,
Yeah,
like the community,
the community is amazing. Yeah, and the food.
being together, the food.
Yeah, all of that.
Everybody, yeah, contributes and takes care of each other.
The plays. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know, like maybe because of my experience and um
Mm.
just not really feeling like there are really boundaries and
Yeah.
I don't in terms of language,
Yeah.
I think I grew out of the insecurity. I mean, I still
Mm.
feel insecure,
Mm.
but at that time I was so insecure that I didn't speak like any Korean at all.
Oh, wow. I didn't
I
know that.
didn't respond in Korean because I was just so ashamed of it coming out wrong.
I
Because I think
see.
there were moments when I did say something and maybe like somebody laughed and
Oh,
like really struck me,
of course.
affected me to the point where I was just afraid to say anything.
Hmm.
But then over time, now I'm like getting older and I don't care what people think and I
Hmm.
just say it wrong. That's okay.
Right.
It's part of my experience.
Right. The gift of aging, you don't care anymore. Whatever.
Yeah, but I think
Mm.
I still hold on to maybe like some suspicions of, people
Mm.
judging me, or
Mm.
if they know that I'm a pastor's kid, are they going to have certain
Mhm.
expectations of
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Because there are sometimes when people find out, like Korean adults find out that you are a pastor's kid, they respond differently, right? They're, oh, your
You're a
dad was.
pastor's kid? Yeah, no, what do you think Korean adults expect of us as pastors' kids versus like our peers, like when other Korean Americans find out we're pastors' kids, you
Uh,
know? I feel
I don't know.
like,
Maybe the general, I'm just speaking generally,
yeah.
like maybe the general assumption is that we grew up well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like, well,
Because our
like with
parents are
good behavior.
pastors. Yeah, because our
Yeah.
parents are
Yeah,
pastors,
yeah. That we have
how,
good manners.
they know how to raise kids. There was I had a issue with a pastor one time and I was sharing with somebody and it was the response to me was like, "Oh, you need to like kind of get past it because pastors aren't perfect." And I was like, "I know that."
Clearly they're not. I know my family.
With that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's strange because I think people have that assumption that pastors are perfect.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
they
a
do.
trouble that pastors
Yeah,
have.
they do.
But then on the other hand, it's not, you can't go, on the way other end of the spectrum and be like, well, nobody's perfect, so
Right. There's no
excuse us.
expectation. That's true.
Um,
I agree with
but
that.
I see that a lot, like that um, dwindling from one extreme to the other.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think how, in addition to what you're sharing about like expectations of pastors being perfect and the family being perfect, for our peers, I think most of my friends don't know I'm a pastor's kid until later, especially if I met them in my 20s and 30s, as a young adult and a young professional. Um, and I think they're shocked because I think what they're thinking is pastors' kids are either one or two types of pastors' kids.
Yeah,
And
I know.
one is like you're a partier and you are lost in the world and you're just like really messed up. And then the other one is like you're very uptight and rule follower, goody two shoes. So I mean, in Georgia, I think I saw a lot of pastors' kids that were our peers. Honestly, like after they left Georgia, went to college and post college, just leave the church and leave the faith and then just kind of try a lot of different things in order to figure themselves out. But I think I think that's I kind of like it when people are surprised now. I used to be offended and I didn't want to actually share as a pastor's kid in the past because I thought it was too much baggage that came with that word.
Mhm.
But I'm like, oh, cool. They didn't think I was a pastor's kid, but I'm like proud that I was a pastor's kid because there's a lot of great things that came from growing up in a Christian church community, especially as Korean Americans, that I think made me who I am today.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you
Like,
think? Yeah.
um, I mean, yeah, I think there's like the PK stereotypes of either, and some of it is true. Like
Yeah,
you either
some of it is
really
true.
lean into the golden child role, or
Yeah.
you are like on the other end rebelling, totally rebelling
Yep.
against. Yeah.
Yep.
I-
It's huh?
Maybe sometimes you need that season.
Oh, totally. That's just life.
Find yourself.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I would love to hear how do you think our experience growing up, in the Korean Christian church affects who we are today and our identity as Prisca and Grace. Do you mind sharing? What?
So my dad, after his time pastoring, remember I said he took on a role at a mission organization, and
Yeah.
that role involved like I just remember every year we would go to a major city, and I guess he would help coordinate like a huge community event
Mm,
where all the like ethnic churches
mhm,
came together, and pretty much like this huge cultural festival, and then also booths and tables. That was their way of like outreaching to their own language or ethnic groups.
mhm,
And it was so fun. I
mm,
mean, I wasn't like, I was too young to really be involved in helping out, so I just participated. And
mm,
there was a lot going on, like
mm.
cultural dances
Oh,
and
fun.
activities. I think that maybe my experience might have been a little different in that way.
Yeah.
But I really loved, I think that opened my eyes to just like celebrating diversity, and
Mm,
that people can express differently based on your background and your
mm,
culture. And I really
mm,
liked that.
mm,
And that's something that my parents to this day do really well,
mm,
that they do. And I
mm,
think that impacted me too in terms of
mm.
the decisions I made in my career, wanting to work with diverse communities.
Oh yeah, going to social work grad school.
Yeah, and
Mm,
this is not super related, but we would go to a some kind of like Southern Baptist conference every
mm,
year,
mhm,
and like it was all the Korean pastors together, and then there would be a separate youth thing.
mm.
So I would be part of this youth group that was all pastors' kids.
Yeah,
And it was kind of fun to have
that's
that space
cool.
where we could all relate on that
Yeah,
level. We
yeah,
were all PKs.
yeah.
And then we would do like fun things together, uh like go to a theme park or
Mm,
something. So I just
mhm,
remember that being really fun. And um I don't stay in touch with anybody.
mm,
Uh but I did like form this sort of bond
mhm.
slash crush on this one guy. And then we wrote letters to each other for a while.
Where was he
Like over
based?
snail mail. I don't even remember. Florida?
Oh,
I don't remember, but
outside of
like
Georgia.
it was like a directory of the Korean past,
Oh, fun.
all of our addresses. So you could, find any of the,
That's cool. It's like a
if you knew
pre-Facebook.
their parents were. You could just look them up on the directory. Yeah, that was
So
a big
cool.
back then for Southern Baptist
Kids.
Korean PKs.
Oh my God.
We'd write letters, and I'm sure my parents saw those letters in the mail and was like,
Where is he now? What is he up to? I wonder. I really want to know.
I don't even, this is bad, but I don't even remember his name. And it just sort of like fizzled out. That was like the extent of my dating in high school.
The pen pal with
My
the
pen
Korean
pal.
Southern Baptist PK.
Uh, yeah.
I
Yeah, but
love
anyway,
that.
I just thought of that because that conference coincided with my dad
Ah,
uh,
yeah.
coordinating those events. It was always
Yeah.
in that same city that the
Yeah.
conference was in.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that's how their work impacted me.
Mm, hmm. That's good. I think for me, how I've been affected by growing up as a PK in the Korean church is I think I have a deep appreciation for the gifts of the Holy Spirit, especially I don't really understand speaking in tongues, but I really have gone to respect and love prayer. And when you think about the five love languages, I think my love language I love giving and receiving is words of affirmation. And I think praying is a form of words of affirmation that I love to share with others and to as an encouragement and to
Mm,
receive from people. So I think that is something I really appreciate about growing up. I think also our home being a community center and the life of service that I've seen my mom and dad provide to the Korean church and broader Korean community in Georgia. Um, I think it made me pursue, like you, a life of like community service, and working in politics, and serving our community now in the Asian American political space
mhm,
because it's kind of just like ingrained in me because that's all I saw growing up.
mhm.
So in many
Right.
ways, like when I mentioned this to you before, but the political space, and you saw this when you came to visit me in DC and help me with a White House event last fall, was the political space for me is it feels a lot like the church community, like very tight knit, very supportive. It's an extension of my family, and we have shared values and shared mission. And so I think if I hadn't known that growing up of that type of beautiful fabric of community building in the church, I wouldn't know to seek that outside in the world beyond, Georgia. So I think it really informed
Yeah,
who I am
it's
today.
really interesting that we both went into very like relational
Yeah.
based work,
Yeah.
service oriented.
Yeah.
Because going back to how
Mm,
we saw our parents pour in a lot of time and
mm,
energy,
mm,
blood, sweat, tears into the church,
mm.
and that kind of caused them not to really be able to give that to us.
Yeah.
But just having that such a high capacity for
Mm.
like caring for a whole congregation,
Yeah.
do you feel that you've inherited that?
I never thought of that in that way, but I think it makes a lot of sense because, when I meet other people, um, when I meet other people, I just feel that not everyone is high capacity in how we go about things in a very intense way. And it's probably not only because we grew up as PKs and but also as Koreans, I think we're just so intense. And when I
Mm,
meet other people
yeah,
who I find out are PKs, I'm like, oh, I get it. I get you, and you have high capacity. Not everyone, but I think a lot of people do because that's what they grew up with, and their parents are like that. So in some ways, you're inheriting that high capacity. This, but
yeah.
that's interesting that you bring that up.
Do you think there are boundaries to,
I
and did
think
you
for
have to learn that for yourself?
Yeah, I've definitely had to through therapy and through just like learning from being burnt out over and over again. And I
Mhm.
think for my parents, I don't think they've fully learned, boundary setting. But for me, um, like seeing how much my parents poured into the church, which is amazing. And I think that's what they thought was the right thing to do. It's not that they didn't love us any less. I know they loved us, and this is how they thought they could serve us is by serving the church and God. But
Mhm.
I learned later as a young adult after leaving Georgia that um honestly the relationship with God is important, and then it should be you and your spouse, and then and your family, the children, and then everything else, whether it's the church or your work or whatever. But I think in a lot of Korean American churches is swapped where they put like the church at the top with God, and then everything else like family and everything else is afterwards. And
Mhm.
so I'm very conscientious of that. I feel like my siblings probably are too, but creating boundaries and knowing like, okay, we can't give everything to this person and that person just because they asked for it. And I'm gonna create boundaries in order to like or you can't give from an empty well. You have to be full yourself in order to give from an overflow. So I've like
Yeah.
learned that over the last decade, right?
Yeah. There's this idea that, and to some extent it's true, that if you're a pastor, um, it comes with a cost.
Mm,
Do you think that um,
yeah.
you should serve the church at the expense of your family, like quality
No,
time with family or kids?
I think that's what our first generation Korean immigrant church people, leaders and pastors believe and thought. But being second gen and just understanding that your family is an extension of the church, and if you need to prioritize how you serve your own family, your wife and your kids in order to be a really good leader in the church. The church starts at home is what I learned later, and I wish I had known that, and I wish my parents did too. But I think it's part of being first generation immigrants, like they're just trying to survive and make things work, and they're not realizing all these like things to make things sustainable and healthy boundary setting.
Yeah. It's things they learned from the people they saw
Yes.
them too.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, overall, just like closing out our conversation, because there's so much more to say here, is I'm really grateful for like what I've learned as a PK. Obviously, like as a kid, it was tough, but looking back as an adult, I think it was important that my family was part of the many vehicles that the Korean community in Georgia was being served, whether they were getting free interpretation in English for their kids to enroll in school or in the court system or going to hospitals and visiting them. And yeah, I'm grateful for that, even though there were some hurts. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel now. Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I always kind of looking back on that hold a lot of mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Brings up, yeah, different emotions,
Yeah,
both
totally.
comforting and happy and also sad.
Yeah.
Because I'm still kind of lingering on, yeah, the whole serving the church at the expense of your
Yeah, family.
family. And I think yeah, really yearn for that kind of emotional connection with my parents. So,
Well, thanks so much for sharing. I'm glad that we got to learn a little bit more about each other's PK experience in Georgia.
so our intern Maria has prepared some uh, rapid fire questions for us, and we are going to attempt to actually respond in a rapid fire way because I know we tend to ramble on and on. All right, so first one. Which do you prefer, long form or short form content on social media?
I think it depends on my mood and how exhausted I am. If I'm really tired, short form. Long form if I have the energy. What about you?
I definitely lean towards short form,
Mm,
just short and sweet.
yeah, 30 seconds or less.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your first impression of me?
My first impression, oh my gosh, this is so long
I
ago.
know, think about it.
I
Think
honestly
about
don't
it.
remember like our first meeting, but the general
Uh-huh.
was like you're super chill and just like really easy to get along with. Like what
Yeah.
you see is what you get.
Mm,
No guessing.
mm, 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 mm.
What about you? What
I
was
thought you were so fun and quirky and just a wild person. Not like in a negative way, but I just remember when we would go into the staircase of AKBC and then we would just sing songs as loudly as we wanted. And we would almost make it our own like performance stage where I don't know, I just remember just having so much fun just like singing in the staircase and like doing weird dances. And I
singing and
just,
dancing?
yeah,
Yeah.
singing and dancing, just being like weird. And I
I think
really
we had a lot to like let out.
clearly, because we grew up with so much trauma. Yeah.
So
Anyways.
okay, what is your favorite makeup item?
Right now I actually have it next to me. This is not staged, but it's the
Right.
Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk lipstick that I'm wearing right
Oh,
now.
okay.
Uh,
What do you like about it?
I like the color. My friend Jessica Shim helped me find this color for my wedding. My January wedding in New York over a year and a half ago. And I just like how it feels so smooth. It is a nice like neutral color that is I used to always wear red lips and then she was like you really does that doesn't match your skin type and then I think this just looks more professional and fits kind of any occasion and it
Yeah.
stays on for a while and it feels good. What about you?
For me, oh, is it mm,
It could be face product. It doesn't have to be makeup.
like I have this concealer
Uh-huh.
thing and it has like the different shades for color correcting.
Oh, cool.
I mean, that's like my most basic. I use that every day to
Mhm.
do my under eye, like
Oh,
here, and then I'm done. That's like my go-to. I need to do that for my
uh-huh.
at
Uh-huh.
minimum, just to
Uh-huh.
look like fresh and not so tired.
Ragged.
Yeah.
Wait, what is the brand? What is it called?
I think it's like Tim, Tim, Saem.
Is it Korean?
I think so. I don't
Oh.
remember how I found it. It might have been through like I was watching a YouTube.
Yeah, I'm like, how are you gonna replenish it when you run out if you don't know where
Yeah, I
you're...
bought a couple because
Oh,
it's
you
been
did.
really like working for me.
Oh,
Yeah, and
wow.
it's creamy, so it applies just
Nice.
really smoothly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like
I love
it.
that. That's great. What is your go-to outfit or clothing item?
Um, these days it's just been this like white sweater with a t-shirt under
Mhm.
with jeans and sneakers.
Mm-hmm,
Nothing.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. For me, one item that I have been wearing a lot are my black Allbirds with
Mm,
the white bottoms. I wear it for work events when I'm dressing up and also for casual because it's comfortable and it looks professional. But I'm on my feet a lot for work events at receptions, so I just needed something comfortable. So shout out to my friend Michelle Kim who was like, "You need to get some comfortable sneakers." During the
mhm.
Chicago Democratic Convention, she's like, "You can't wear heels. Your flats are uncomfortable." So I love my Allbirds when I leave the house.
You like them? I
I
haven't.
like them, but I also want to get Hoka's because I keep hearing that people feel like they're walking on clouds, and I think I need it as my feet ages more.
I have Hokas. They're very comfortable.
Are they?
Yeah. And
You are.
I think
Mhm.
I need sneakers, shoes in general that have a little height. to them because I'm so short. You know, like I'll take anything. Yeah, and they have a little bit of height.
Hokas have a lot of height, don't they?
I mean, you can choose.
Oh, okay, I see.
There's a variety.
Hmm.
Are you do you plan ahead or prefer to be in the moment?
I like to do both. I need a little bit of in my personal life, a little bit of a skeleton of what's happening, and then have flexibility. At work, I have to plan ahead more.
Yeah,
You?
that makes sense. I mean, if things are just like casual, not work, like I like in the moment. But
Mm,
I'm kind of like you, like I need both,
yeah.
especially thinking about travel. I
Yeah.
like to have that skeleton.
Yes.
You know, like maybe, oh, this day we're in this general neighborhood,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
you just make your way around and
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then also make reservations for big things that you want to do, especially when you travel overseas, because usually the tickets
Mhm.
run out or the popular sites. So for me, I'm like, I came all the way here to Berlin. I want to see X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna go ahead and book those tickets, and then everything else can be flexible, more or less.
Yeah.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite episode or podcast moment so far? Our 5 episodes, and I guess including this one. But yeah, do you have a favorite episode or moment?
I think my favorite moment was when you called me a basic B, pretty much. I just thought it was funny because I really felt like that is like how you are. Like
What?
you're not being anything. You're just saying out loud, you know, what you're thinking, and you're not trying to come off a certain way, but you don't like realize how it's coming out,
I
and I just
don't. I'm just
so
like, it's
funny.
being honest, brutally honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a real moment. Um, I just enjoyed the therapy episode and discussion. I
Hmm.
think it was I think it was really important, like helpful for me to hear your own experiences with therapy. And I didn't realize that you had gotten therapy so early on before it became more normalized too. And I was just thinking, oh man, Prisca, Crystal, who's Crystal? I was gonna say Crystal. Prisca, Prisca's so courageous. And so I was just
Oh.
like, wow, I have more admiration than I already do for you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. From my heart to
Um,
yours, unfiltered. So I think that's the end of our episode. Thanks everyone for listening to our experiences as PKs in the Korean church, the good and the bad. And a lot of it was heavy. It was very heavy, and I hope someone out there is encouraged or can connect. But we'll love to hear from you if there's anything else that you want to hear more about or questions. Leave it in the comments. But follow us at Fighting Club Podcast on Instagram. And Prisca, how do we end?
to all our friends listening, fighting!
Fighting, fighting to everyone.